Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for checking in on the podcast. We're going through 80 to 61 today of the Bleacher Reports top 100 NBA players of all time. I'm Eric, and my buddy Zach's here also. Say hi, Zach.
Hello, everyone.
So we're going to start off with number 80, and it's Mr. Mo Cheeks. Mo Cheeks, to me, solid player. He actually played a little bit with the Knicks. Has hardware, but not somebody I think of in the top 100 when I do think of Mo Cheeks, and then we got him at 80 here. Good player, but like I said, numbers do not impress me. 11 points career, 2.8 rebounds, 6.7 assists. Good number of steals for a career, 2.1. That's solid. His best ultimate season was 15 points, 3 rebounds, 9.2 assists, and 2.6 steals. I just feel like, I don't know, you could put some other people there instead of putting him there, especially at 80.
When I see Mo Cheeks, I think, hell no. He's not top 100. It's kind of like Detlef Schrempf. I don't know if he's top 150, maybe even 200. I know he was on that Sixer team where they got the title. I feel like whoever made this list is a big 80s Sixers fan because it seems like their whole starting lineup is in it. But look, one-time champ, 4-time All-Star, 5-time All-Defense. I mean, that's solid. But Ben Wallace was number 81. Is that right? I think he's number 81 on this.
Yes, he is.
And he's over Ben Wallace. Mo Cheeks doesn't have a Defensive Player of the Year award. Ben Wallace has 4. Ben Wallace also has a title. And look, Rondo's not in my top 100, but how is Mo Cheeks ahead of Rajon Rondo?
Completely agree with you on that one.
Yeah, because when you compare them like neck and neck, Cheeks 5 defense teams, Rondo 4. Rondo is a 3-time assist leader, Cheeks 0. Rondo a steals leader, Cheeks 0. They both have a title. Rondo's all MVP 1, all NBA 1 for Rondo, 0 for Cheeks. And Rondo did it in a tougher point guard era. And that's what stands out to me. I mean, the point guards that Rondo had to go up against, the game was different in Rondo's era. It's so much more point guard oriented, and the pace of the game was just completely ran by the point guards. Not so much in the Mo Cheeks era. So I got to give the nod to Rondo, and it's like, I don't think any of them should be on this list, but if Mo Cheeks is on it, then Rondo has to be.
Well, think about also, you're talking about, comparing them too. Look at Rondo and his rebounding. He's probably one of the best point guards over the last 15, 20 years with rebounds too.
Right.
Really flirts with a low triple-double. Cheeks, I mean, he's averaging 2.8 rebounds. There's another big discrepancy in terms of keeping Rondo off and keeping Cheeks on.
Right. Rondo just has so much more hardware and more history, I feel like. And the playoff numbers with playoff Rondo, he's averaging 14 points, 6 rebounds, 9 assists, and 2 steals. Mo Cheeks, 14 points, 3 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals. They're so similar. Rondo has the hardware. You got to put Rondo over Cheeks, but they both don't deserve to be on.
I agree with you on that. Number 79, Cliff Hagan. Please help me on this one.
I agree that he's top 100. There's a lot of history with Cliff Hagan. I think he's too high. For me, he's kind of like borderline on the top 100. I'd probably have him anywhere from like 90 to 100 if he makes it. But look, outside of the NBA, he's got a title at Kentucky. He had to forfeit his senior year because his teammates were point shaving, and that program got the death penalty, so they set the tone for Kentucky. But he's way too high. He's a pioneer of the game. He really kind of utilized the hook shot and kind of made the hook shot sexy back in, the old days. But I don't know. He served in the military 2 years before being drafted, so that might have kind of cut his career a little bit short. But that's the thing with Bleacher Reports, short careers. I just don't know if you can put him ahead of certain guys. The one thing, he was involved with the trade with Ed McCauley for Bill Russell. So the Celtics got Bill Russell out of that. They traded their draft rights to get Bill. So that's not really off to a hot start to put you in the top 100. But he did come back. He beat Russell in the finals, which I think gets him on this list. That's a good accomplishment. 5 Western Conference titles, 6-time All-Star. He's a solid player.
Yeah, I mean, the more you keep talking about him, the more I think, he probably does deserve to be on there, but maybe more 93, 95, somewhere in that ranking, not 79 maybe.
Yeah, totally borderline, but I think he should be on it.
78, Joe Dumars, the fat point guard. All kidding aside, Joe Dumars to me felt like the glue of that Detroit Pistons bad boy team. Like, he was the calm one. He was the one that was collective, where a lot of those guys, if you remember watching them, I mean, I watched a lot of the Detroit Pistons basketball games in the 80s, and it always seems like you never knew who was going to come unglued. I mean, you had Sally, you had Rodman, you had Isaiah, you had Lambeer. Dumars always seemed like the cool cat of that group. He always seemed like the one that was like, all right, guys, everybody's crazy on this team, but if we play together, we can win. And I really think that he's the guy that held it together.
So calm.
Great defender. Great defender. He's got the hardware, obviously, the 2 championships with the bad boys. I definitely say yes.
Yeah, he's a for sure yes on the top 100. I think he's kind of in the right place on this list, maybe even a little bit higher, depending on how you want to measure certain guys. But 6-time All-Star, 2-time champ, and a Finals MVP. I think that's what gets him high on the list for me. That Finals MVP is killer. And then 3-time All-NBA, 5-time All-Defense. Like you said, he's a great defender. Michael Jordan also quotes him as Dumars being the best defender he's ever faced. And I think that says a lot coming from the GOAT, greatest of all time. Not sure if Bleacher Report has him at 1. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't. But, I mean, if the GOAT says that, you're getting mad props. He's a good defender. Really consistent NBA career.
Agree with you on that.
And he also won as an executive, too, which when you look beyond, like, playing days, I think that says a lot.
Shows how he understands the game and how to, like, understand putting people together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If he's going to do it as an executive, it shows that he understands what pieces of the puzzle fit. And that's what we were talking about earlier about him, like, being the cool collective one with those players.
Yeah. And one thing I want to point out, he's not really known for being a scorer, mostly for his defense. But in college, at one point, he was the 11th all-time leading scorer, or all-time scorer in the NCAA at one point. So
that's amazing, because I never would have thought that stat was true.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So, disclaimer, anytime we're going into the 50s, early 60s, mid-60s, this guy right here does not know his basketball as well. So, I'm passing the mic over to you for number 77. Probably going to pronounce his name wrong, Bill Sharman.
Yeah, Bill Sharman. And I know you pass it on to me because my dad locked me in the basement, made me watch old highlights of these guys. But look, Bill Sharman was really good. He was a really solid player. Bleacher Report quotes on here, even if alongside Bill Russell. And I'm going to stop right there, because one thing with these Celtics teams, it's really odd how people measure the old Celtics. Because if you're on that Celtics team, you just say that you rode Bill Russell's coattails. But if you're Bill Russell, you kind of, shit on him and say, oh, well, he had all this talent around him. It's like, well, which one is it?
Right.
So with Bill Sharman, I'm okay with it. I think it's still a little bit high to be at 77. But he's an 8-time All-Star, 7-time All-NBA, 4-time NBA champ. I think the 4 titles get him there. And he averaged 17.8 for a career. So it's not like he's just a scrub on that team, racking up titles. He was a good player. Great free throw shooter and a really good defender. He deserves to be on the list, and the titles show for that, and he was a key contributor to that team.
Nice. I'll give you 76 and take Hal Gurr also. I mean, just looking at the accomplishments alone, he definitely belongs on the list. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I'm totally good with this. Hal Gurr is awesome. 10-time All-Star, 7-time All-NBA. The one knock I have on him, he always had a really great teammates, and he just didn't win that much. He should have won more. I mean, there's a team, he had Will Chamberlain, Chet Walker, Dolph Shays, Red Kerr, George Yardley. I mean, why is it okay for Michael Jordan to ruin all these legacies, but not okay for Bill Russell to ruin legacies? And I mean, we just got to hold Hal Greer accountable. I just think he should have won more. He's definitely in a decent spot. I'd probably have him anywhere from 80 to 90, so it's solid.
Cool. All right, 75. Here's one. Good old Bleacher Reports going to keep me on my toes. Mono Ginobili. And my notes start off with mono, question mark, mono, question mark.
Ginobili.
He obviously solid, and he's a great fundamental Euro basketball player for sure. But not at 75, in my opinion. I don't even know if he makes the list. I have to really think about it. I mean, you have Duncan, you got Robinson, you got Parker over him. When you really think about it, he's like the fourth option. He does a lot of the dirty work. Good defender. I would say coin flip on him, but definitely not at 75.
I disagree with you big time. I think 75 is like a perfect spot for him, honestly. He sacrificed so much over his career, and the titles rewarded him for it. I mean, if anybody sacrificed, it's Manu Ginobili. I can't name a player that sacrificed more. And he was a sixth man of the year. He played till he's like 40, and I swear, man, it's like the older he got, the more you kind of recognize his greatness with just how he's kept just zigzagging through the key and dunking on people at such an old age, and all the clutch plays that he had. I mean, I know he made some bonehead moves, but I mean, he was just one of those guys that you just had to let go, and he would make up for it. But look, when you look outside of what he did in the NBA, Euro League and Italian League champ and Finals MVP, 2-time Italian League MVP, 2-time Euro League scoring champ, slam dunk championship in Italian League, if that counts for anything.
I was going to say, is he dunking over Mario?
Yeah, but one thing that I mentioned in our last podcast, what gets certain guys on the list for me is, what have you done for the game of basketball? And he introduced the Euro step to the NBA. Really, nobody really talked about it till he got there, and I think he's done a lot for basketball.
Here's a question for you, and I think this is an interesting one in terms of systems. Do you think if he doesn't play in, the Spurs system, Pop system, do you think he is a better player, or do you feel like the system was right for him? So what I'm saying is, like, can he go to like Charlotte, or can he go to like Indiana and be the same player you look at him as? Or do you feel like it's because of the system he was in? Because when you really do think about that Spurs system, it's like the Patriots. It's like the plug and play. They're always plugging Euros into that system, and they're always playing. I mean, really, that system is a smart system, and it's been very successful. I mean, how many years? It's 18, 19 years now in a row the Spurs have gone to the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Something crazy like that. So do you think he's a system guy, and you don't realize he's a system guy because he didn't play anywhere else? Or do you think he can play in other places? What do you think?
I mean, it depends on what you label better as. I think statistically he might be a better player. I think he'd get more minutes. He'd probably be a starter on other teams. As far as the system, I think he fit the system great.
Oh, he fit the system great.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. Like, what I'm trying to say is like, he fit the system. Is he the same player with those accolades if he's going to somewhere else like Indiana or is it just because he played in the Spurs system, he looked really good? Yeah,
I think he'd be maybe a better player statistically, but you also got to win to be on the list, in my opinion, unless you just set some crazy milestones like a lot of these guys did.
Right.
And with Ginobili, I mean, he's a proven winner. He's won the Italian League and the Euro League. There's no question in my mind that he'd find a way to win on another team.
Right.
And if anything, the Spurs system might have held him back a little bit, because think of all the just bonehead plays that Ginobili would make, and Popovich would just be screaming at him all pissed off. And I mean, the next place he'd just bomb a 35-footer, just like, all right, whatever, you just fucking live with it, So I don't know. That it's a fair question. I think he'd be great either way.
74, George Mikan. I think Mikan's interesting because I definitely think he belongs, because like you were talking about, what's he done for the game of basketball? But the thing I think is interesting is that I don't know how much he holds up if he plays in a later NBA. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about modern NBA. Like, what if he plays in like 1974?
Or even 65 with like
You know what,
Russell and
you know what I
Chamberlain.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
how does he play? So, I mean, I'm going to say yes for sure, but I definitely think it's questionable.
I definitely respect this. One thing I try not to do when I'm analyzing a list, it's my last priority, but it's to compare eras because you just can't do it. But I respect it. The thing with this, there's only like 11 teams back then in the NBA, so it's pretty watered down. He's a 4-time All-Star, 3-time scoring champ. He is actually the inventor of the underhanded free throw, not Rick Barry. A lot of people don't know that. So that's your fun fact of the day. But he also changed the game. They added the 3 in the key rule because he's so dominant. So he's the reason that they brought in the 3 in the key rule to the NBA. And as an official, Mike also is responsible for the ABA 3-point line, which is bizarre to me, and also the colored ball, which is cool. And I mean, that was later adapted by the NBA to bring the 3-point line. So he's done a lot for basketball. The one knock I have on Mikan, he shot below 40% from the field,
which is really bad at that height.
Yeah, and I mean, out of his 7 years, I don't think he ever shot 40%. I don't have the stats in front of me. Maybe like once.
And that's even after. That's even before the 3 in the key too.
Yeah, and
wow.
I have it right here. He shot below 40% from the field 4 out of his 7 years. So
that's bad.
Yeah, for a center to be that dominant.
And he was what? Was he legit 7?
I know he's 6'10".
Yeah, that's bad. If you're 6'10" and that's bad. Especially back then too, the way that the game was. Yeah, that's bad.
Clearly dominant. A little overrated. Definitely in the top 100 because he's a pioneer.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. 73. 73 was probably one of my favorites of this next block of 20 that we're doing, and it's Dennis Johnson, DJ, right? This is something interesting. Okay, so I mean, I watch a lot of Celtics too. I mean, how could you not as a kid? I mean, they were all. Well, I mean, you could because you weren't born, but they were going against the Celtics Lakers all the time, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, this is where it goes with my eye test because he was an amazing player. You know, when you watched him on TV, you could see what he actually gave to that team other than the numbers. Because if you look at the numbers are not that impressive. I mean, 14 points a game, 3.9 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal.
Right.
His ultimate season, 19.5 points, 5 rebounds a game, and 7.8 assists, 1.8 steals. So his ultimate season, sort of near his numbers to a degree, but man, he was an excellent defender. I really think he made everybody around him better too. I think a different point guard on that Celtics team, maybe different. He's one of my exceptions of, not being the best player on his team, but still making this list. Because really, when you think about that, he's got to be fourth best player on those Celtics teams. Yeah. Right, you got Bird, Parrish, McHale, and then I would say Dennis Johnson would be number 4, right? Wouldn't you? So I definitely would make an exception for that too. I mean, great player, great player.
Yeah, for me, I would probably put him a little bit higher on the list. I really like Dennis Johnson a lot, and it's not just because I'm a Celtic fan, but 5-time All-Star, 3-time All-MVP, 9-time All-Defense. Like you said, he's an amazing defender. And he's often, the Magic Johnson stopper, as well as you could stop him. He was always asked to guard him. He's got 3 titles, and he has the finals MVP with the Sonics. So it's not like he just kind of rode the coattails of Larry Bird, McHale, and Parrish. I mean, he earned that first title in Seattle. And look, that backcourt with DJ and Gus Williams back in Seattle, that's one of the most underrated backcourts of all time. Underrated. Gus Williams was awesome, and that team was a problem. And I mean, Dennis Johnson was the guy on that team. So he wasn't the guy on the Celtics, but he was on the Sonics. He has some big time clutch moments too, like some really historic moments, like DJ steals a ball and Bird steals a ball and then DJ gets the layup against the Pistons. I mean, his intangibles and his clutch factor is way up there. And he's an amazing leaper, jump center in college, really great athlete before the Celtics. A lot of people don't remember that because they just remember on the Celtics. He's a great athlete.
Well, and it shows also that he's willing to take that back seat the ego isn't there, where
Yeah.
he was the man in Seattle, but then he realized what he had around him in Boston, and he really went to that defensive angle instead, because he
Right.
knew he had guys that could score like Bird and McHale, and so the defense is, and you have to think about back in that day, he's going against Isaiah Thomas. He's going against some like Magic. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
There's some guys he's going against where you have to shut those guys down to a degree. If you don't, you're not going to win the game.
Right.
If Magic is going off for 30 points and 11 assists and 9 rebounds, you're not winning those games,
Right.
72. 72 is such an interesting one to me.
Yeah.
Grant Hill, he's not that high on this list. And maybe you can say he doesn't even make the list because of the injuries. I put him on the list. He's the same way I look at Penny Hardaway. And they pretty much almost came into the league right around the same time too. If these guys stayed healthy, they would have been way higher on lists. I mean, Grant was, and I remember this, I hated the whole Jordan comparison. I hated for like a good decade. It was like, here's Harold Miner, the new Jordan. It's like, okay, but Grant Hill, he definitely got those Jordan comparisons, when he first hit the league. But his numbers, I mean, for shooting guards, small forwards, I like seeing, you can get to 20, but I like seeing the 5-5 or higher on the assists and the rebounds. So if you're like a 19-6-7 guy or a 19-8-5 guy, I think that is a real like milestone to what kind of a player you actually are, and to be honest with you, the injuries just killed him. I mean, they really did, because people don't understand how absolutely explosive he was. I mean, that guy, he could shoot from the outside. He could take it to the rim. I mean, he was a great defender, very solid. His ultimate season, 25.8 points, 9.8 rebounds, 7.3 assists. That's borderline triple-double era right there. And you got to remember, besides Westbrook right now, Oscar Robinson was the only guy that had a triple-double average for a season. Grant Hill's doing that, and he's doing that in the mid-90s where, there's a lot of good basketball players in that era, and he's guarding and he's going against a lot of great players. So that's a huge, I mean, I definitely put him on the list. My problem is I wouldn't know where to actually put him, because you're putting him either by where you think he would have been potential-wise, or are you putting him in where what you saw in that because he did play a bit, but let's be realistic. There's only a certain amount of years where he was who he really was.
Yeah, and I agree with you. He's a hard one to place. For me, it's too high. He's definitely in my top 100, but it's just too high. He's got the 7 All-Stars and the 5 All-NBAs and the Rookie of the Year with Jason Kidd. But he kind of recreated the point forward position. He's kind of like the first guy to really do that. And so in that case, he kind of changed basketball. He's really LeBron before LeBron. Like, if you look at his numbers, he really is. He's like LeBron before LeBron.
Or without the eating protein shakes every 2 seconds.
Yeah, and if you look outside of the NBA, if you're really not sure how great he was, when you look at his titles at Duke, the 2 titles, I mean, they changed college basketball. And the multiple historic moments in college, like the one-handed baseball pass to Leitner for the game-winning shot against Kentucky, and then the alley-oop where his elbow is like on the rim. I mean, we got such a small sample size, but to put him over a guy like Bill Walton, who has like an MVP and a title and a Finals MVP, I'm not all about that, but he's on the list for sure.
Yeah. Here's something funny. So as I was going through the list, and I finished my list up last night, I started cracking up because I almost started seeing this pattern, and it's like the conspiracy, thing in my head. Yeah. But like as you go through your list, you'll start finding some really funny things on how I almost think they were messing with us to like do things like, for example, so Grant Hill played on the Phoenix Suns, right? And number 71 is Sean Marion, who played on the Phoenix Suns. There's a lot of funny little things like that. I've noticed that during the thing. I'm just going to say this, and you might be different than me because I'm a little older than you. My notes for Sean Marion at 71 was, please stop. I'm sorry. I'm just, you know what? Marion, yes, he's a solid player, but does he belong even remotely close to this list? In my opinion, absolutely not. I mean, one of the weirdest shots I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, he had the points, he had the rebounds. Checking his ultimate season was pretty solid. I mean, 21.8 and 11 rebounds a game, almost 12. He averaged 15, 8, but his assists are atrocious. 1.9 assists for his career. I just, when I think about Phoenix, and I did this too during the list. I thought about, okay, Phoenix, any team you want to pick, who are the guys that come to your mind right away? And I can tell you right now, I can say Barkley, I can say KG, I can say Marley, I can say Stoudemire, I can say Nash, all over Sean Marion. There's 5 guys. Are 5 Phoenix Suns going to make the top 100? Maybe, maybe not. But then if you have 5 guys make that, there's 95 guys left from all the rest of the teams in the NBA. It's a really hard no for me, and I don't even have to think about it twice.
Yeah, he's definitely on like my most underrated list because he was a really good player. Statistically, it's pretty outstanding. But when you really look into it, he's way too high. Like if he's in my top 100, it's like 95 to 100. And I actually have quite a bit to say on this just because this makes me so mad that they left a couple Suns out of here but put Sean Marion on the list. And I know he's the 4-time All-Star, 2-time defense, and NBA champ at the Mavericks. That's great. But look, we also forget what happened outside of basketball for him. Like he requested a trade. He's unhappy with, his whole role in Phoenix when he had Steve Nash throwing alley-oops to him. And Nash made Marion. And his numbers dropped big time when he left Nash. Big time. When he went to Miami, he wasn't the same contributor on that Suns team. So if you put him over like Amari Stoudemire, like Sean Marion over Amari, which I don't think Amari's on this list, but you're putting him over Amari. But All-NBA, Amari 5, Marion 2, All-Star games, Amari 6, Marion 4. Amari's a Rookie of the Year. I mean, underrated for sure, but too close to not include Amari. And then the one that really pisses me off, because this guy should be on this top 100 list, is Connie Hawkins. Connie Hawkins was a beast, man. And they both have 4 All-Stars. Connie Hawkins has a first team, Marion 0. Connie Hawkins is averaging 16, 8, and 4 in 7 seasons compared to Marion's 15, 8, and 1. I mean, I don't know. You just can't put Sean Marion over Connie Hawkins. Connie Hawkins is an all-time great, and to put him over Bernard King is also laughable to me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think that's that, sometimes time's forgetting on how good some of these players were, 70, Tiny Archibald, yes, for sure. I'd put him higher on the list. He actually tore his Achilles and came back. And in that time period, we talked about this in the last episode, the doctors and the medicine and how things are so much more advanced now. Tearing your Achilles is really not the end of the world, but back then, yes, it definitely either took you out of your career or you just never came back even remotely close to the same. But, I mean, his ultimate season, 34 points per game, 3 rebounds, 11.4 assists. A lot of times when you see guys put up crazy numbers in terms of points, the assists aren't as close to being as high. So to go 34 points and have 11 assists, I mean, that's insane. His career averages, like I said, he had the Achilles. So his career averages are 18, almost 19 points a game and 7.4 assists. I would definitely put him on this list.
Yeah, he's definitely on the list, but he's hard to rank. I'm not sure if I'd put him higher, like you said. The one thing I found interesting about that incredible season that you're talking about, where he, led the league in scoring and assists in the same season, his team finished 13th out of 17 teams. So it's not like he led that team to the playoffs or, to some incredible playoff run. I mean, they weren't a good team that year. Not to take anything away from that, I just think it's worth noting because we have kind of, discredited some players on this list for putting up big numbers, being on bad teams like Jack Twyman. But, I mean, there's no question. He's so shifty, so quick. Mid-range game was unbelievable. Led the NBA in free throws made 3 times and free throws attempts twice. Six-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA, and an NBA champ. I mean, he's on the list for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. Alex English is our number 69 volume scorer for sure. Really interesting stats. I mean, some of the stuff that you see, He scored 21,000 of his 25,000 points in the 80s. No other player came close to that. Isn't that insane?
Yeah,
Moses was the
that.
second closest at 19,000. And Dantley, Bird, and Kareem were the only other players to top 15,000. Not the best defender, but I mean, I definitely think he makes this list. His ultimate season had 29.8 points, 8.1 rebounds, 5.3 assists. Like I said, solid player to have put those numbers up. And small forward, I mean, I'd like to see maybe his rebounds be a little bit higher than that, but to score 21,000 points and score more points than any single other player in the 80s, that's actually very impressive.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That kind of blows my mind. I'm good with this pick. I'm just not sure if I put him over a guy like Bernard King. The stats are pretty identical, but Bernard King was a much better defender and much better in his prime. And a lot of people don't realize Alex English played in a system where it's extremely high-pace offense. Like, those Nuggets teams would put up like 130 points.
Yep.
I mean, it was way beyond what any of the other teams were doing, so he had a lot more opportunities. So a guy like Bernard King was such a more efficient scorer. They're putting up like identical numbers, but Bernard King's doing that in a half-court offense where everything's slowed down. And to me, that's way more impressive. Well, look, the 8 All-Stars, the 3 All-NBAs, he's a scoring champ. He's a great player, man.
68, Carmelo Anthony.
Your boy.
I have such a love-hate with Carmelo. I mean, I love that he wanted to come play for the Knicks. I thought that was awesome. And you know what? When he was with the Knicks, the thing we hadn't had since Ewing, in my opinion, was we didn't have that guy. The guy that you knew at the end of the game, you really wanted him to have the ball. You know, whether he was going to make it or miss it, you felt confident that, all right, he's got the ball. Here we go, right? It's hard for me. I'm biased because I'm a huge Knicks fan. He really could score. His mid-range was just great. Towards the end of his career, lost some of that quickness. Great rebounder too, you know, depending if he played the small or the power. He kind of went in between in his career, at least for the Knicks he did. I think he could have been such a better player, but unfortunately he was too much of a me player. His assists were just atrocious, and I remember a lot of times, you know, he'd be make fun of, like, is he going to even get one assist tonight? I mean, that's the one thing I think that kind of hurts him. But this list is really bad, and if I'm going off this list, he can definitely sneak into this list, you know, high 90s. I can't put him, like I said, for me, no championships, and just too much of a me player. You know, the attitude, I'm not coming off the bench. Come off the bench. If that's going to be what your coach wants, or if that's going to be the best place for you to be, come off the bench. You know, and that's the problem I have with the me players, is they're not taking into consideration the other 11 guys on their team, or how many of those guys are playing that night. Let's say you have a 7-man, 8-man rotation, right? You're not thinking about your other guys, and basketball is definitely a team sport. You know, if you don't move that ball, it's very easy to stop a team, because then it's just it's iso ball, and, you know, iso ball doesn't totally work. So I would say maybe, but super high in the 90s for me if he makes my list.
Let me ask you this. This is going to be interesting.
Sure.
Who would you put higher, Carmelo Anthony or Alex English? Interesting.
I'd put Alex English.
Alex English?
I would.
Okay. I'm going to argue this really quick.
Okay,
and
argue away.
Look, these stats are like eerie how close they are. Very eerie. But I think he definitely deserves to be ahead of Alex English. Carmelo played 16 seasons, Alex 15. Melo 11 playoffs, Alex 10. Melo 10 All-Stars, Alex 8. Melo 6 All-NBA, Alex 3. Both won scoring title. Regular season stats, Melo 24, 6, and 3. Alex 21, 5, and 3. Career total shockingly close. They're both just over 25,000 for points. Both just over 6,000 in rebounds. Alex English has a little over 1,000 more assists. Melo has, they're both right at 1,000 for steals. Alex has 300 more blocks. That's not very much. Percentage-wise, Melo 45, Alex 50. 3-point percentage, Melo 35, Alex 21.
That's bad.
Yeah, it's really weird. And so then when it gets to be this close for me, you really need to look outside of, what else have they done? And for me, like Carmelo's one of the best international players we've seen with the
That's
Olympic
very
team.
true. You're completely right about that.
Yeah, and the NCAA title at Syracuse, like Melo has proven he can win. It's just in the NBA, it's about situations. I know he's more of a me guy, but so is Alex in an up-tempo offense. So it's just too close for me. So looking outside of it, I got to put Melo over him, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I respect that. 67, Vince Carter. I know you love some Vince Carter. I know you love me some Vince Carter.
Love Vince.
You know what? I love Vince too. You're going to kill me for this. I'm just going to say it. I'm going to let you argue with me. I say yes. I don't have him at 67, though. I can't believe he's still playing. That's amazing. He's really become more of a locker room leader towards the end of his career, which I thought was, I thought it was cool. See, okay, here's the difference between a Carmelo Anthony and a Vince Carter. Vince Carter understood his role. The older he got, Carmelo didn't. And now Carmelo kind of does, but it's like the boy who crawled wolf. It's a little too late. You know what I mean? He was one of the big face stars, in my opinion, in the 2000s. Like you think of that slam dunk contest. I mean, you cannot. I remember watching that at a bar and just going, I can't believe what I'm watching right now. That was the first. Like, whoa, we really just upped the game, slam dunk wise. And then the dunk over Frederick Weiss. I mean, how you cannot not see that in your head anymore. I mean, great scorer, great college player too. His numbers are really good. I think they could be better, obviously, but he's been playing too long. So obviously every year he plays, his career averages are going to go down a bit because he's not playing 35 minutes a game. He's playing 15 minutes a game. So his ultimate season, 27, 6 and 5. I mean, that's what we talked about earlier. Like, I love to see those 6 and 5s for the rebounds, but 27 points on top of that.
Yeah.
Great player.
Yeah. And I mean, he's amazing. I agree 100% with you though. Like, I think he might be a little bit high on the list, honestly. Just because he hasn't really accomplished too much, but what he does have, he has like every single old man record that you could possibly think of. And that, I mean, he really does. He's the only player played 22 seasons. He's age 43. He's still playing, and it's not like he's just on the back of the bench like a lot of these guys. I mean, he's playing like 15 minutes a game. He's getting some run. He's the oldest player in history to lead or tie a team, or to lead a team in scoring. Oldest player to score 20 plus points in a game at 41. I don't know. And then just everything he's done for the game, like the dunk contest. And I mean, he had like every single kid just trying those dunks on an 8-foot rim in the driveway.
But you have to think though, does that put you higher on the list? Do you know what I mean? Like,
no. But what I'm getting at is what everything he's done for basketball outside of, his individual like stats. I mean, everything he did for Canada. He saved the NBA in Canada.
Oh, I believe that.
In Toronto.
For sure.
And then, I mean, he's got the All-Stars. He's got 8 All-Stars, 2 All-NBAs, and he's 20th in all-time in scoring, 45th in all-time in steals, 6th in threes made, 5th in games played. He's probably going to pass Stockton. And he and Barkley are the only 2 players that have ever posted a game of 40 points, 15 boards, 5 steals, and 5 assists, dating back to 73 when they actually kept track of that.
Right.
So, I mean, he's an icon, and he's underrated, and he's also sacrificed a lot, accepting a backseat role, and I just hope he wins a ring. He deserves one.
Yeah, I agree with you on that for sure. 66, Chauncey Billups. Here's a perfect example of where the eye test is what you need, because his career numbers are really not that impressive. You could look at his career numbers and go, 15 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists. His ultimate season, 19 points, 3.7 rebounds, 8.6 assists. They're not numbers that jump out at you, but we've talked about this before, and one of the big things, and I do believe this for sure, is that wherever he went, he made the team better. Whatever team he played on, where he went, he played better. I mean, got the teams to play better. He's got the hardware too, and like we'll go back to this a couple times during these podcasts. Is that 2004 Pistons team was supposed to get destroyed in that finals. They were 4 or 5 to 1 underdog in those finals, and they just took it to the Lakers, and he was a big part of that for sure. I definitely say he makes this list. I without a doubt, I definitely think he makes the list. He had longevity too, but it's an eye test thing. And if you watched him play, you could tell. I mean, he was clutch too.
Yeah.
I mean, Chauncey Billups for me makes the list.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. He's still too high for me, but he won the title, and that Laker team, they were so outmatched. I mean, they had the glove, they had Kobe, Fisher, Malone, Shaq. I mean, in the guards he was going up against, he had to go up against Gary Payton, Kobe, and Fisher. They're three great defenders. 5-time All-Star, and then 14th all-time in threes, 44th all-time assists. And you're right. Every team he went to, the team got better. And I'm not going to go through all the stats, even though I have them right in front of me. But if you go back and you look at every single team the season before he got there, every single season, every single one, they improve.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You're talking about that Lakers team and how low that Lakers team was. Look at the difference between that Pistons team and that Lakers team. Pistons team was a good team too, right? It was Rip Hamilton was on that team, Wallace, Billups, right? But they played like a team.
Yeah.
Like a lot of those guys, like Peyton won his ring in 2006 then, right?
With Miami after LA, yeah.
So that team was almost like ring chasers.
Yeah.
Malone was chasing that ring, Peyton was chasing that ring. And sometimes that doesn't work. When you try to put those guys on those teams, it's not like what they were when they were in their primes, and they're not playing together as a unit because those guys really want to win that ring. It's not the same.
Yeah.
65. Kevin Johnson, KJ. I'm gonna say right now, and I think you're probably gonna agree with me. He's probably one of the most forgotten players.
Yeah.
In the NBA, I really believe that. That guy. Ton of assists. His assist numbers are insane. He could score. He could play D. He could take over a game. I mean, that 92-93 Suns team with him and Barkley and Marley, and I think Ainge was on that team, right? I think he was on the team that year. I mean, if they don't play Chicago, they win the whole thing that year. I think that was a Barkley MVP.
Yeah.
Right? They win that year. I mean, he's such a solid player. His numbers look good. I mean, for a point guard, almost 10 assists for his career average, 17 points a game. Let's call it 18 to be fair. But his ultimate season, 22 points a game and 12 assists, 2 steals, 4 rebounds. I mean, he was. I liked him too because he didn't take any shit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I loved him for that, and he was kind of quiet too, but he definitely. He wasn't afraid to scrum. He wasn't afraid. He was a solid player. He's definitely one of my favorite underrated players, especially in the 90s, 80s, late 80s, 90s for sure.
Yeah, he's burned a lot of guys, and if you ask a lot of guys who the first guy to, whoop their ass was, and like their, the first time they really got the business taken to him, they'd say Kevin Johnson. 3-time All-Star. He got the most improved player in 88, 89. 5-time All-MVP. He's still a little high on the list for me, but he definitely deserves to be on. He's extremely underrated. He just made the Suns better. Before the Suns got Kevin Johnson, they're 30-52, and then the next year they had him, they're 59-23. So, I mean, that's a pretty huge turnaround. 3 conference finals. That Suns team should have won a title, and that's like the only thing that really bothers me about this is that Jordan just ruined so many legacies, and that team should have won a title, man.
Yeah, you're correct. I mean, the Knicks teams, that team, I mean, I hate Utah, but the Utah Jazz, the Sonics, Jordan definitely, yeah.
Yeah, but again, like over Pistol P, like KJ over Pistol P.
No, I can't. But in my world, in my list, they both make that list.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All right, here's an interesting one. Not in my house. There can be Mutombo. Who wants to sex Mutombo? Which is a great story if you don't know it.
You sound more like a mafia guy.
Do you know that Mutombo story? Can I tell you the Mutombo story?
Absolutely.
It was in college, and he was in a bar, and he just put his hands up in the air, and he just yelled, "Who wants to sex Mutombo?"
Were you there for this?
No.
Oh, I was gonna say.
Yeah, I would have bought him a beer and been like, "Dude, you're amazing." Yeah, no, I heard that story from my buddy Big T. It was great. Who wants to sex Mutombo? Yeah, I loved him. The swagger, the attitude, amazing defender. He's blocking your shot and waving his finger in your face. I mean, I loved him. He could score if you needed to, and that's what I kind of liked about him too. So you put him in the Ben Wallace, Rodmans, those guys that, great defenders, but he could score, and that made him, like we talked about before on the previous podcast, you had to be accountable for him. You couldn't sleep on him. Like with Rodman, you could sleep on him; he wasn't going to really burn you. But Mutombo could score on you if you weren't paying attention. It's weird. Here's the thing: do you have him on the list? I mean, do you have him on the list over Willis Reed and Zoe? You know what I mean? Like, you got to put Zoe before him. You got to put Willis Reed before him. In my opinion, he definitely played a long time. And one of the things about Mutombo too is, not only did he play a long time, he was consistent during that stretch of how long he played. I remember when he was playing with the Knicks, and he was old, and he was still blocking shots, still running the floor, excellent condition. I mean, legit 7'2"? Yeah, probably, but he wasn't awkward 7'2". Like, remember all like the white guys with the mustaches in the NBA? They're all like 7'3", 7'2", but they ran like clunky robots. I mean, Mutombo was pretty agile. A lot of people don't talk about that. I have it on my list that he doesn't make the list, but it's close. But I'm gonna disagree with myself, and he's gonna make the list for me. He'd be in 90 to 100 in my opinion.
Yeah, I actually think this is a good placing for him. I do. 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards. He was great. He's your premier shot blocker, and I agree with you though. Like, if he's on the list, Zoe has to be on the list. He just aged so well. I mean, he's playing up until his 40s with the Rockets when he had to fill in for Yao, and Yao got hurt. And I know he wasn't the Mutombo of old, but he was still so serviceable and so valuable to those teams. And that was when the Rockets broke that record-breaking wins in a row. I forgot what that was off the top of my head, but Mutombo is a huge part of that. And I mean, he's a legend. And as an 8 seed, they beat the Sonics as a 1 seed. Mutombo totally led the way for that.
Yep.
Yeah, and just the 8 All-Stars, a 3-time block champ, 2-time rebound champ, 6-time All-Defense. There's just no getting a shot off on him.
No, definitely not. And the crazy thing with him is you'd see highlights where he'd be blocking multiple shots on one possession.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a knack for where the ball was going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's a great player for sure.
Yeah, you got to work on his impression, though, a little bit.
63, Paul Gasol. This is where we start to get into the new players, current players on these lists and how they stack up. Great early career, excellent addition to the Lakers. He's got the hardware. He definitely makes my list. He's probably one of the stronger European players in the NBA all time, which is interesting because, and I'm sure we'll have an honorable mention podcast, but I'm going to throw one out there right now, Sabonis. There's one there's Sabonis. I think of Gasol as a guy that, he's a big guy. I mean, he's 7'1", right? 7.
I think he's right at 7.
Right,
solid
but
7.
the way he moves, you don't think of him as if you don't know those numbers, you don't think of him as 7. You think of him as like a 6'8" guy. Yeah. You know what I mean? Really, I mean, he moves well. Great passer, very underrated passer. He definitely makes my list. I just don't know where he falls, and then if you do less than another 5 years, does he go up more than 63? Does it happen? Does he stay where he's at? I don't know.
Yeah, I honestly really like this placing for him. I think if he's just under the top 60, it's too high. So I do like this, and he's done so much for basketball globally, like over in Spain too. He's got the 2 FIBA Euro Player of the Years and the Mr. Europe Player of the Year. He's got 2 of those. He's got 3-time FIBA Euro basketball top scorers and a couple FIBA World Championships and silver medals with Team USA just standing in the way. So, I mean, outside of the NBA, he's proven that he can win at any level and be great at any level. And for me, that's like what I have to look at when I look at Powell, because the titles he got was with Kobe, but I mean, he was number 2 option on those title teams.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with it. He's got the 6 All-Stars. He's a great player.
Yeah. You can consider him maybe one of the best Euros of all time in the NBA.
Yeah, and he also kind of changed that Memphis Grizzlies culture. I mean, they were jack shit until he got there.
Completely agree with you.
Now they're, playoff contenders.
Completely agree with you. 62, T-Mac. My first thing is, and it's so hard because he put up some amazing numbers. He's another one of those guys where the rebounds and the assists is where they need to be. It would have been interesting to see him and Vince play more. I think that would have been really, really interesting. Yeah. He started off really strong, and then the injuries kind of hurt him. He almost falls in that me category in a way, but in a way not. I have him on my list. I don't have him at 62. I think he would be further down my list, like in the 70s, late 70s. I know it sounds kind of crazy in a way because it depends on how you look at basketball. Like I don't know. It's hard for me to think of what is, because he had a good probably 6 or 7 seasons where maybe he should have stopped playing before he actually But then he had those glimmers. I remember the first day the Knicks got him in a trade and he went berserk. The fan was going, "Oh my God, McGrady!" And then it was like, no, it came back down to earth. So. Like I said, he'll make my list probably, but it'll be kind of lower down the list. And he's an asterisk what if kind of guy, in my opinion. Yeah,
and I feel the same way. He's further down on mine. He's never once played a full 82 games, which was a little shocking to me. To put him over Bill Walton and Grant Hill, I mean, Walton has the MVP and the Finals MVP. Grant Hill has the titles at Duke and kind of like changed college basketball and had similar numbers in his first couple of years. Grant Hill played till he's 40 compared to T-Mac's 32. Can you believe that he retired at 32?
I can, with how he played towards the end of his career. He lost his step, he lost his bounce, and you have to remember, like when he was scoring a lot of that, in his early career, he was high scoring, efficient, going to the rim. You take that away, you find out what kind of real player you have when you have to adjust your game.
Yeah, and then also he never passed the first round until he was with the Spurs, when he was just like there for like the end of the season to maybe get a championship ring.
Yep.
If we're gonna be so hard on Mitch Richmond and Pete Maravich, why are we not on Tracy McGrady? Is it just because he's cool? And
that's what what? And I hate to say it though, that's what I think. And that was the same thing with Vince Carter for me. It's like it's like that 2000 cool. You know what I mean? Where the NBA needed to kind of go somewhere. Jordan was done basically. Bird and Magic were completely in the rearview mirror. They needed like that new style of NBA player, and I think he fit that perfect. The smile, the whole. And I agree with you on that. I think he did not show up in the playoffs. He really didn't. You know what I mean? Really, really didn't. I think that one year in Toronto when he played with Vince, and I believe they beat the Knicks in that playoff series. But then other than that, they didn't do anything in that series. And then, yeah, sorry, I agree with you on that, especially the Mitch Richmond comparison for sure in terms of not having real playoff success.
Right.
You want to take 61?
Yeah, Tommy Heinsohn. I love Tommy Heinsohn. Big Celtic fan over here. I agree. I think it's actually a little bit low, though. I mean, he has 8 titles in 9 seasons. And, again, it's one of those things where they keep knocking these guys for playing alongside Russell, and it's like, which one is it? Are these guys just good because they played with how great Bill Russell is, or is Bill Russell not good because he had all these guys around him? And you just got to look. He's a 6-time All-Star, 4-time All-NBA. He's a Rookie of the Year. So, I mean, clearly the dude could play. And he averaged 18 points and 9 rebounds for a career. So it's not like he was just out there as another body on a championship team. Like, he was a key contributor. And then he's a 2-time champ as the coach of the Celtics in 74 and 76, got coach of the year in 73. He's clearly a great basketball mind. He's done a lot for the Celtics. So, I mean, as a player and a coach, he's got 10 rings. I mean, what else do you want from the guy? So, I mean, to me, like, he's somebody that could sneak into my top 50 maybe, or just outside of it. That guy was awesome, man. He was really good. And as a coach, those teams that they beat the Bucks with Abdul-Jabbar and Dandridge and Oscar, and then the finals against the Suns with Van Arsdale and Westfall. Because Bleacher Report thinks Westfall is so fucking good, you know. So like,
I love it.
Yeah, I mean,
let the hate flow through you. You're Celtic.
I had to do it, man. I had to do
let it flow through you.
That fucking Paul Westfall ranking is just killing me.
Oh, just wait until you get further. Wait until you get further into this report, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah, but against Dolph Shays, Dolph Shays is great. He's very high on this list. He battled Dolph for 20 points per game. The rebound stats don't show because it's so far back, but he battled Dolph for 20 a game.
Yeah.
Above his average.
No, I definitely think he makes it. He's an hysterical announcer, too.
Yeah.
Anytime I have to hear the Celtic feeds when they play the Knicks, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
Folks, thanks for sticking with us. We really enjoyed doing this. We're at number 61, so subscribe, and we're going to tackle the next 20 on this Bleacher Report. I hope you enjoyed our show. For Eric, I'm Eric and Zach, and we'll catch you soon.